Good evening and welcome to Footy Furnace. So much to talk about tonight. Let's get straight into it. A couple of Brownlow medalists are alongside me. Let's go first. The 1996 Brownlow medalist, James Hird. Welcome to you.
Thomas, great to be here.
And, well, about 12, 13 years later, Jimmy Bartel, what was that? 2007, wasn't it?
2007,
11 years later. Welcome to you.
Geez, long time ago, it feels like now. Long time for you, what about for me? Well, evening, Tom. Good round of footy again.
Yeah, good round of footy and a few surprises and some big results as well. Collingwood's lost 3 of the last 4, so we'll talk about the Pies tonight. These are the results from Sunday. Some lopsided results, specifically Geelong over Port Adelaide. And in the end, the Dockers too good for Carlton, even though the Blues fought hard. And St Kilda over North Melbourne at Marvel Stadium. And this is the ladder. I've got a question for you both. Of these 9 teams, which is the least likely to do damage in finals?
For me, well, it's a difficult question because they're all very, very good teams. And I'd probably say Hawthorn, but only just because of their latest injuries and they're just their drop-off in form. But I don't say that with much conviction because, you know, Hawthorn on their day, they may even beat Collingwood on Thursday night, so you just never know. They've all got a one-wood or a style of football which can actually really match up well against another one of those sides in the 8. And it feels a bit like a tennis tournament. Yeah. You want to get it on the right side of the draw and get the right matchup. So injuries are a big factor. I think we saw on Thursday night how the Dogs got a hold of the Giants. Jack Buckley is a massive out for the Giants. I know they're hoping to get him back for week 1 of the finals, but if not, it's going to be tough for them. Yeah, we saw how much they struggled without Josh Kelly and Toby Green as well against the Dogs team that's rampaging, but yet they're a game outside the 8. Of course, Gold Coast have a game in hand as well. Jeremy Cameron, you put on the agenda a couple of weeks ago, Jimmy. The road to 100 at the time, I think he kicked 58. He's now got 75 potentially with 7 games remaining, including finals. This is red hot. Yeah, it's red hot, and he's probably overachieved the way Hirdy and I mapped it out in the green room before we went on a couple of weeks ago, because we were thinking, you know, a couple of bags of 6 or 7 in there, but the 11 has got him launching. They're looking for him, but a lot of people would say, Hirdy, it could become a distraction for the Cats, but I actually think it's the opposite. When the last quarter, which when we reviewed Geelong and Port Adelaide a little bit later, there's a bit of a common theme. Sides don't want to be the team that helps him get to the 100 or kick a big bag, and they're starting to obviously almost wrap the arms around him. And by the end of that game, I know Port Adelaide had pretty much given up, but Geelong were taking the ball from 50 to pretty much 20 metres out unopposed because Jeremy Cameron just started coming back to the goal line with direct opponents.
So it actually helped the Cats.
Yeah, it gave them actually a lot easier shots. Well, Lockie Jones, almost like the Gringe, really, the way he was sticking on him and wouldn't stay off him. But it did change the way Port Adelaide played, and I think maybe they should just play to actually beat the Cats rather than stop him getting We'll get to that more a little bit later on. I certainly hope he gets to 100 goals. We'll talk to Julian Valance from PointsBet in a few minutes' time. The heat map is stacked tonight. Dan Houston's not in the best form for Collingwood. The Dockers over in Perth we spoke about before. Bit of Jack Silvagni, bit of Will Day with an injury, Hirdy, that you struggled with about 20 or 25 years ago. And the Eagles, what they're looking for. And don't worry about the Dogs. They were amazing at Marvel Stadium the other night. And Sunday I'm looking forward to as well. But let's get into the main topics from the weekend and start with Collingwood. They've lost 3 of their last 4. They were humbled by the Brisbane Lions last night at the MCG. Brisbane by 27 points in the end. It was a performance that must cause some concern for the Pies now. They're no longer on top of the ladder, the first time since round 9. Have teams, to an extent at least, worked out the Pies? I think they played a very good side who's now won 4 in a row at the MCG and put some dominant performances, and they've met some good sides in good conditions. I don't think it's necessarily the Pies have been worked out. I actually still see a lot of positives. De Goey and Hill back into that side, but I think they've been matched around the contest and the clearance, which is actually opening up really good options for the opposition moving the ball forward. It's hard to show. You draw a line in the middle of a contest. If you can get the ball past that middle of the contest away from Collingwood's goal, a lot of their players are offside. Collingwood will have to push the ball forward, keep the ball going forward. If you can get it forward past that line and burst their bubble here, you can expose them to a certain extent. I don't think sides will work them out, but the Brisbane Lions around the clearance, around the stoppage, really beat them. And then they really exposed Collingwood's defence, you know, and the way Moore was defending and the way he has been defending the last few weeks. But I just love the way Brisbane played that chaos type of football, changed the lanes of the ball and made Collingwood defend in a way they hadn't defended in previous weeks. Yeah, and they do. I mean, there's every chance Collingwood win just one of their last 3 as well, which gives them 16 wins for the year, which puts their top 4 spot in jeopardy, certainly top 2 in jeopardy, and they'd love that home final because if they don't get that home final, they'll be travelling to Adelaide or Brisbane, which makes things difficult. Which is different from what we've been talking about Collingwood. We've been talking about Collingwood, top 2 MCG finals, through to the grand final. It's now, this game against Hawthorn on Thursday night is a massive game for both clubs. And off a 5-day break as well. A key to Collingwood's success is Nick Daicos, as Chris Fagan discussed post-game.
if he started to cut loose, we might, you know, go to him with Berry or Dunkley. So Dunk's probably tightened up a little bit on him in the second half, just around the stoppages.
In the match-up, Sidebottom's had 12 touches.
So, Nick Daicos, Hurdy, tell us how the Brisbane Lions dealt with him.
Chris Fagan did, which I thought was great coaching, is put Dunkley and McCluggage up on him around stoppages, which really just curtailed his ability to get the ball at stoppage and then burst out. Daicos' numbers first half, he's the highest rated player on the ground with 17 disposals. The second half is the 23rd rated player, and I just think the way Chris Fagan's coaching at the moment, I listened to him before the game when they asked him what was he going to do with Daicos. He said, well, we're just going to play. We're going to play our style, and if it happens he gets too much, this is what we're going to do. He got too much, this is what they did. And alongside the way they moved the ball, changed lanes, the stuff around contest Nick Daicos went a long way to winning that game.
And the other part of that, when you looked at those edits, and I was watching the other night, the importance of Jared Berry playing the wing role. So sometimes you can fluctuate or take different distances depending on who you're playing on, whether you come a little bit more inside, a little bit more boundary, you take 10 metres, or you come up the contest. When you watched Berry in the second half in particular, he was contest coverage, which means you're almost like another mid playing that sweeper role. But you watch, he almost tracks Daicos as his line. So Dunkley can go to work. If Daicos wins the footy, the next person he'd run into would be Berry. So it's almost like you allow Dunkley to do his stuff, but you've got that little catcher there at the other side of the stoppage. It's
almost like you've got chaos and creativity with the Lions and the way they play and move the ball. There's a lot of structure, but simplify it, chaos and creativity against this structure and process of Collingwood. They play each other 5 times, one and win 2, one and win 3. We're not sure which. It's not all bad for Collingwood. They've got a lot of upside, a lot of things to go. And if a few things went differently on the night, some of the Collingwood players played better, you'd see that Collingwood win the game. So if these two met in the grand final, it'll be another fascinating grand final.
And there's every chance that does happen. I just want to draw attention to Dan Houston as well. He's been a little bit short of a gallop this year. I was watching last night from the game and I was looking at Dane Zorko at one end, who just picks apart gaps. He runs, he hits targets. Dan Houston's been well below his best all year. They gave up a lot to get him. They need him at his best for finals. How important is he to Collingwood's success?
Yeah, look, I think he'll get better and better the more he plays with Collingwood. A bit much like Lachie Schultz, took a little bit of time. And you've got to think when he was at Port Adelaide, it was every opportunity you could get the ball in his hands. But Collingwood have got plenty of guys to bring the ball off half-back. You've got another Daicos back there. Quayner's more than capable when Jeremy Howe's playing back there. You can name a few others. So he isn't always the number one option to get the ball coming out of the back half like he was at Port Adelaide. Even Perryman's playing good footy back there.
I just think that what you'll get with what you'll get here is as the games get bigger, as the games get harder, as the games get into finals, you need more and more options, and he will come into his own. I don't think it's been a bad. It's taken him a while to get the feel of the team, but in the finals, I think he'll be very good.
Yeah,
skipper?
Well, the skipper, and Craig McRae is at pains to say that pretty much he paraphrasing it, don't isolate one player, and Darcy Moore in particular, who had 6 kicked on him by Logan Morris. Then you go back to the Prancing Pony, of course, over there, big Paddy Voss kicking 6. They're a system-based defence, but as Hurdy touched on a little bit earlier, is if you can actually get the ball forward side of the stoppage and then actually have some composure to pick your way through and shift the angles, you can get really good looks on Darcy Moore, because the way he likes to play is well off his opponent and watch the game. What I'd like to see from him, and actually to help Collingwood, is trust himself a bit more. So we saw the other night, the big double fister, the Dustin Fletcher double fister, is if you can, for me, and call me a little bit old school, if you can jump up and get both fists to it, just open your hands up and mark it. I'd rather see, this one in particular, I'd rather see him drop the ball and have a go. So even that one, trust him to mark it, because really good things come off intercept possession. We always talk about if you can get intercept possession, it launches yourself out the fat side of the ground, or you come back through them. And look, he probably feels more confident doing that. Collingwood fine, but I'd love to see him mark it, because that's when I think he's his absolute best.
But I think it is a problem, because if they play against Adelaide with the tools, they play against obviously Brisbane, who Logan Morris got hold of him. They play against Geelong with Jeremy Cameron. If he's got to play on those players, it is a problem, because he doesn't want to play. That's not his strength. He's playing one-on-one. So he's going to have to actually change a bit of his game, or he's going to need more support around him so that he can be that playoff player.
Billy Frampton played VFL. Charlie Dean started on Logan Morris. Jeremy Howe was out, so they've certainly got some players that could come back in. Speaking of Logan Morris, kicked 6 goals for the the first time in his career. What an incredible pickup that is at pick 31 in the draft. Like, he was amazing last night, and he's kicked goals against big opponents this year, the Western Bulldogs, other finals teams. And if you compare him to some of the great forwards after 38 games, Hurdy, he's right in and amongst it.
Yeah, well, obviously the Essendon champion Matthew Lloyd after 38 games, 97 goals. But look at the quality of player there. Lloyd, Cameron, Walker. He's just below those guys, ahead of Lance Franklin, ahead of Tom Hawkins, Jack Rewalt and Josh Kennedy the same. He has crept up on the competition the way these first 36 games. Obviously a premiership player last year, but what he is now is exceptional.
It's pretty exceptional stuff, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think we've already noticed the big moments don't worry him. Of course, you know, delivered grand final day, delivered it in big games. What really stands out to me is his smarts, his ability to actually find space inside forward 50. He doesn't have to be the one standing underneath the footy. You watch how many times he gets it on angle leads. Pretty creative the way he finds it.
Can we just put that graphic up again, if that's all right, Ricky, upstairs? Because Matthew Lloyd actually asked me to put that graphic up. He rang in, he's actually texted that in himself. So
it bodes well for Logan Morris. All right, let's move to Perth this afternoon, where the Fremantle Dockers in the end overcame Carlton. The Blues were 4 goals up at half-time. The margin in the end was 27 points. What it means now, Hurdy, is the Dockers have won 10 of their last 11 games, none by more than 49 points, and 5 by under 2 goals. Take us through the Lexus Blackburn key moments.
Yeah, well, it's fantastic. There's Ashton Moore, just come out of the reserves the last few weeks, kicking the first goal for the Blues. The Blues are sensational. Blake Acres snapping across his body from the boundary, and Francis Evans here kicking Carlton's 5th goal of the first quarter. And you thought really the Blues are in town, but the Dockers slowly started to come back into the game. Josh Tracy booting a goal on the run, and the next one we see Murphy Reid kicking his 20th goal this season. What a revelation he has been, Jimmy Murphy Reid.
Has to be rising star.
I mean, he's just been sensational, really.
We've got a great race for the rising star, but yeah, what's that, 20 goals and 30 goal assists? Hasn't been done since Cyril, I think, in 2008.
Yeah, and after half-time, you just saw when the Dockers came back, based around clearance and contest, and we'll get into that. But for me, this is great coaching by Justin Longmire. The way he changed the game off the back of a few moves to get his Dockers in, who weren't playing great football. They weren't playing great football, and some of these days, I'm sure there was a time there he could see that finals spot slipping away just because of the way they were playing.
And Tom, for me, a big moment in the game was Hayden Young being subbed out. I think we highlighted him last week. He could be the point of difference for Freo after to make a real big charge this year. Yeah,
so this is a groin injury. It's his left groin, and it remains to be seen how serious this is. But we know that he's had some soft tissue concerns in the past. He's such an important player for them. You speak about the way that Justin Longmire changed the game, Hurdy. What did he specifically do? And this has happened a bit. Like, it seems like the Dockers have serious belief in themselves at the moment, and part of that is the fact that they've got a coach who's coaching extremely well at the moment.
We know Carlton are a very good stoppage and clearance team. That's what they pride themselves on. In the first half, they really got hold of Fremantle, particularly the centre bounce. It was 11-1 centre clearances in the first half by Carlton, which was really where they dominated the game and got 4 goals in front. Off the back of Cripps and Hewitt doing a great job. Patrick Cripps was sensational that first half, and so was George Hewitt. But they really fought their way back in the game. Longmire tried to bring in the 2 ruckmen together, Darcy and Daicos, to change things. And after half-time, pushed Hewitt, who was getting 25 possessions in the first half, pushed O'Meara onto Hewitt and really took him back from 25 possessions to 11 possessions. And the Dockers plus 29 from stoppage, based around stoppage and clearance. And I just think it was really good coaching from Justin Longmire, who you could see that first half of the game, Carlton was significantly in front. And the way that most teams have tried to beat Carlton is let them have the stoppages and then attack half back and go around them. Fremantle decided to do a different way and really attack them at stoppage, and it worked for them.
That round 24 game at Marvel Stadium looms so large against the Western Bulldogs for both teams as well, especially if the Dogs are unbeaten until.
But if they had a loss today, then would have almost been done.
And it looked like it for a while there as well.
It really did.
Probably a sour note again for Carlton is the injury to O'Farrell, especially under the realm of Jack Silvagni and his possible move to Collingwood. So this is something that will play out over the next few weeks and months. But this is a knee strain, according to Carlton. And again, it's another blow for Michael Voss at a time he needs his best players on the field.
Yeah, you don't like when you see players grab quickly to the outside of the knee, which is around where the ACL is. Of course, fingers crossed it is just a strain, because he's showing good signs, and he backed himself. And against the Hawks at the MCG the other week, the more the game went on, the more confident he was in the air. So fingers crossed.
Just genius from Gary Lyon. Yes, Isaac Rankin is the hottest hand of the round. thanks to Lexus of Blackburn. He's a genuine match winner, isn't he?
He's a superstar, the absolute superstar. And he's one of the players you turn the TV on to watch every time he's on TV.
Yeah, incredible player. And the Crows win the other night was really important. But they were down by 26 points at quarter time. In fact, they were down by 32 points just before quarter time. A late goal got them back within, I guess, touching distance and then went on to win the match. It was a thrilling game at Adelaide Oval. But I want to ask you both about Matthew Nix's tactics at quarter time, calming his team down in comparison to what we've seen from other coaches over the years. This was enlightening just to watch. I'd love to be a fly on the wall or a person listening to what he was saying at the time.
Sorry, you go.
Yeah, well, I think that's because he's earned the trust of the group. And we've seen him before, you know, the doco series they did, where he went pretty hard at him. Now, he's had a lot of that group. I know there's been some additions to it, but he's had the majority of that group for a number of years. So they've earned his trust and vice versa. So you don't have to actually come out with the rocket all the time. No. He's like, right, there's plenty of game time left. It's pretty clear where we're going wrong, which Hawthorn were able to link up the footy. We're fantastic in clearance and stoppage. We'll set you up really well. Just calm down. I just need you to get back to work and get back to what we're talking about. Let's take care of, you know, the coal faces, coaches like to say, Hurdy, and we'll get back into it.
It's very clear to me that people talk about game day coaching, but that's built on 6 years of coaching that group. You know, what's happened in the change rooms, what's happened out in the ground at training, what's happened in the video room, what's happened about the assess. He's outlining, all right, we've done this right, we've done this wrong, we need this right, and this is how we do it, rather than yelling and screaming. And sometimes players need a motivational speech, but that wasn't the time. This is, we need to fix up this area of our game to get better, and they did a great job at that. And I think a lot of that was around their defenders. There was a bit of panic in their defence, and fixing up that defence and calming them down really helped.
Two unheralded defenders they have, Worrell and also Keane. They're playing some great footy this year. Worrell has to be in All-Australian discussions. Keane, they picked up for nothing, and they're the number 2 and number 4 ranked intercept defenders in the competition. And that's a big part of the way they play, Jimmy. Yeah,
I think after the first 4 weeks, where we knew Adelaide could score, but they were also giving up big scores, their back six, or the back group, if you will, because there's always one or two that, you know, come in and out of there. I think they're working really well, but it's from the pressure up the ground as well. The improvement of O'Brien means you can actually win stoppage or put pressure on, which allows Worrell, Keane, Milera, all these sort of guys to peel off, help out. But the thing is that they do really well is they just keep scrambling. So there was a number of times the other night against the Hawks when the Hawks were on top, they just refused to stop scrambling. So it means, can you get a hand in? Can the next guy come and help out? You know, that lunging spoil. And it starts to wear the opposition down and almost puts them into a little bit of a panic, like I'm always under the pump.
People talk about intercept defenders as though they're just good readers of the flight of the ball, they can drop back. Intercept defenders need pressure on the ball up the ground, and they need players around the play on their man and beat them and scrap and fight. And yes, Worrell and Keane being great interceptors is great, but they also beat players. They beat players and the ball's there. And Gunston kicked 2 on Worrell early, and I think he looked a bit panicky. For the coach to settle him down and then just to go back to beating a man is as important as being that intercept defender.
So Sam Mitchell had an experiment the other night. Let's play 4 tall forwards in the starting 22 and see how it goes. And Gunston, as you said, kicked 2 goals early, 4 for the game. Chol and Lewis 1 each, and Cal Shadir was subbed out. Are we any closer to knowing what their best 3 are, assuming they're going to play 3 in finals?
I don't think we are. But one of the things for Hawthorn, if you're Collingwood, you can experiment, right? Or if you're top teams, but Hawthorn can't afford to experiment. They've got to find out who their best 3 are, I think, because I don't think you can play 4 and play those 3, because you need, particularly coming the next month of football, you need ground pressure as well.
Well, he looked like a genius at quarter time, didn't he? But I think most people will acknowledge the fact that they're probably one genuine midfielder because, you know, short or through that running depth, because they can add the small forwards who come up onto the ball, of course. Moore and Watson, who has taken centre bounces quite a bit. So probably they'll look to address it. Warple found it tough to get into the game because of the pace of the game.
It's an unusual sub, though, wasn't he, as a choice?
Well, you had to have a mid if you were going to go 4 smalls, really, for the balance of it. So they tried it. I actually didn't mind they tried it because, obviously, Chol was the second ruck as well. It looked good for the first 40 minutes of the game, but then Adelaide's a pretty good side on their home.
So is Deer the one that misses out?
I think the time will tell. You've got 3 or 4 games to go. You can't say one will miss out. Like, could get injuries, could get anything. It's based on form.
Yep, and Chol's probably the one that can play the second ruck role as well.
And I think that's why he needs to be in there.
Adds to his value. Will Day, speaking of value, he's out for the rest of the season with a bone stress injury in his navicular. Rob McCartney, the Hawthorn footy boss, released this statement yesterday. The club's medical and high-performance team have taken extra precautions with Will throughout his rehabilitation this year. This included very closely managing his workload and consulting external sternal specialist. This is an injury that's caused him trouble all year. He had surgery, Hurdy. You had a very similar injury back when you were playing. The management will be questioned of this from the Hawks. And it's a big blow for them as well because they need him for finals if they're going to compete.
Yeah, and he's a star, and he's a star and always their best player, if not their best player. And it's very sad for him personally because you just see the pleasure he was getting out of playing football last weekend when he played so well. So this injury is an insidious injury. It creeps up on you. It sort of ruined players' career. Matthew Egan, your ex-teammate, it ruined his career. Not saying that will happen for him, but they need to take this very carefully now because if he's had an operation, have another one, you don't want another recurrence, particularly in a star player. But personally and for him, you just want to see him back out there playing and doing what he does best.
Yeah, if you rush those sorts of players in those moments, it can be difficult. Only they would know internally.
Yeah.
But they're the questions that are being asked right now, and you went through this, Hurdy.
I broke mine 3 times and had 2 operations on it. So I know where he's feeling like. Now I don't know. You talk about there was a stepped on. If it was stepped on, that may be the way he broke it. Who knows? They will only know. But they'll know that this time they need to take the time to get him right.
Jimmy, you would have loved watching the footy at Kardinia Park this afternoon. It was an old-fashioned thrashing down there. We've seen plenty of them over the years. Geelong v Port Adelaide, 88 points. Take us through the Lexus of Blackburn key moments. More specifically, give us the highlights for the Cats, because there weren't many for Port.
Yeah, can we start? Because I think they're still kicking goals down there at GMHBA Stadium. You're right. It's not the first or last team, Port Adelaide, to go down there and get touched up. And we know Port Adelaide have thrown the towel in for the year. Max Holmes has finished started the game and finished the game with goals. And he had a massive day. Probably gets the 3 Brownlow votes. 35 touches, 2 goals, 900 metres gained. Bailey Smith had 30. Humphrey started the game on fire. Patrick Dangerfield beat Dylan Williams, who was a late in for Connor Rosey in that game. He was out with some illness. Ollie Lord, great name from the Cats, but actually playing for Port Adelaide, managed to hit the scoreboard as well. I thought Georgiades still kicking 3 goals for Port Adelaide was a good return from him with limited opportunities. Because how's this number, Tom? I know you like stats.
Yep.
Fourth worst ever differential in inside 50s for Port Adelaide in their history. They're minus 36.
More than the 07 grand final, I wonder?
I'm not sure, but it was a big score like that. So the Cats dominated, and of course, Neil kicked 3 and Jack Martin 4. So it was all the Cats, and as we mentioned, Jezza kicking 6. And we keep barracking for the story. Yep. They've got the Bombers, the Swans and the Tiggies. And we noticed in the game, of course, everyone knows Jezza's going for 100. By the end of the game, Cats players were just walking the ball pretty much to the top of the goal square because no one wanted Jez to kick another one on them. It
was really poor by Port Adelaide, wasn't it? I thought that was a really poor performance by Port Adelaide. It just looked like around the contest they were beaten and Geelong allowed to run out and do whatever they wanted forward of the ball. So it felt like the cue's gone the rack for the power.
Kenny Incley was very upbeat post-game, but it just feels like, OK, you can argue whether it's a wasted season or not. They've developed some youngsters. They've learnt more about their team. But these last few weeks appear wasted now. Like, they're just going through the motions. The last 2 weeks, they've been absolutely smashed by the Crows and the Cats.
Yeah, no, it didn't look great for Port Adelaide. But as I said, Josh Carr will start pre-season in about 10 weeks' time.
I just want to bring attention to Tom Stewart and an incident involving Ollie Wines. Now, I don't know what the impact will be here. It might be low impact, which is a fine. But 3 years ago, this would be nothing, according to the MRO. But after the Braden Maynard and Angus Brayshaw smother bump, whatever you want to call that, he is liable, Tom Stewart, if he does injure Ollie Wines in this situation. So he wasn't injured, but that action in itself could lead to maybe a fine at most if the MRO deems the impact is low.
I think Maynard came down harder. I think Tom Stewart legitimately tried to pull himself up. That's my reading on it first time seeing it.
Yeah, but once you, the rule is once you choose to smother, then you are liable for what happens next.
I agree, but also the force of the contact has to be something.
They do, that's right.
Yeah, all about outcome.
Oh, well, we'll go to that a bit later on with a couple of North Melbourne players, Jimmy. Still to come, who the Eagles should target in the trade period. Jimmy's got a list of players to go through, plus the latest on Nasiah Wanganeen-Milera. Stay with us on Footy Furnace. You're watching Footy Furnace. This is such an interesting talking point now in football. How much do we respect the privacy of players and how much do we want coaches to be honest? I personally love what Craig McRae said. What are your thoughts, Hurdy?
Well, if Craig McRae says no, then he's lying. He hasn't met with him, then it comes out he's lying. So I think if you ask the question, you just say yes, as long as he's checked it with Jack. And I think as long as Jack doesn't get surprised he says it, that's the important thing.
What do you think, Jimmy?
Yeah, it's pretty well said by Hurdy. As long as the player's comfortable, I think we all know it's going on anyway. And of course, you're going to feel more aggrieved with the player leaving than potentially the player arriving at your club.
Yes.
Is Carlton meeting players?
Of course they are. Every club meets players.
But what Michael's saying is they wouldn't say they're meeting players.
Yeah, I don't.
Is that the difference?
I'm not arguing that Michael Voss shouldn't, volunteer it. But if you asked a question in a press conference, don't we want coaches to be honest?
I think so, because I think the next question, if someone knows you've met with a player, because the journalist obviously did know, or he wouldn't have asked the question.
Yeah, that's right. That was me talking. That was me asking the question.
But it'd been self-promotion.
I didn't actually know 100%, but you ask the question and you get the answer. I just think as an industry...
So if he had said no, what would you have said?
I would have believed it. Right. Because I didn't know 100%.
Right.
So I trust Craig McRae. I just think as an industry we need to grow up a bit and show more maturity on these things. Clubs are meeting with players all the time, and it shouldn't be taboo. Because I don't think teammates care. Jimmy, take us inside a dressing room. If your teammate is exploring going to another club, you know that that's happening. You know those chats are happening. So why does it matter if it's public or not?
Yeah, it all depends timing of the year and where your team's at. Of course, if you're making a charge to the finals, which Carlton aren't, it's a bit different.
It did affect Oscar Allen, though, didn't it?
Yeah,
that did.
But that's only because the industry's immature. Like I think that.
But why didn't it affect Jack?
Well,
he's a more mature player.
He's a free agent. He's out of contract at the end of the year.
I think with the Oscar Allen one, though, there was the element of the captaincy on top of all of that.
That's really important as well. But, you can also, as Chris Scott says, chew gum and walk at the same time. You can play good footy while you're meeting with other clubs. And plenty of examples of that across the years. So speaking of Collingwood, they've got some really hard decisions to make now on some older players. They've offered a deal to Jeremy Howe. They clearly want all of these players to stay to varying degrees. But how do they fit them all in is the really interesting question. I think Tom Mitchell's probably in trouble. He's already said he wants to play on. It might be at a fourth club. Mason Cox is the same. They're not going to deal with that till the end of the year. I mean, at some stage, they've got to move some of these players on. It's really hard for Justin Leppich.
They can't fit them all in because they want to bring other players in as well. The question I asked Jimmy, if you're going to a final series like they're going into, and let's say 3 of those players or 4 of those players know they're not going to be there or think they're not going to be there, what does that do to your locker room?
I think you need to have an environment where you say that you still could be called upon. And there's plenty of examples going into final series where a player hasn't been in the side for a number of weeks leading into the finals and even the first final or the second final. But because they've stayed sharp and they've created a really good environment, they get looked upon favourably by the coaches and they actually come in. And how many stories we heard that every year? He wasn't in the side until round 22 or until the first final. So you'd be wanting to still crack the whip at training or putting pressure on the senior players because you never know what could help.
Yeah, and you never quite know if you're a senior player like that, whether you're going to get a deal next year or not. So those conversations are happening as we speak, but it's difficult for Collingwood. All right, let's go to the Lexus of Blackburn key moments for St Kilda versus North Melbourne today. This game was at Marvel Stadium, and the Saints, well, they held on. Last week they came back from nowhere, Hurdy, and this week they held on because North finished pretty quickly. Yeah,
they did, and they started very well with North Melbourne too. They looked they were very strong at the start of the game. And Luke Davies-Uniacke rolling into Max Hall and snapping the first goal on the run. Looked like North really are up and about, and that the coach had got them started. Jack Darling grabbing the ball out of the ruck and handing the ball off to Harry Shooter to snap a very, very classy goal. Jack Higgins snapping his 40th goal this season, his highest return of the year, so well done, Jack, on getting that. Colby McKercher kicking a goal on the run from 40 to put North in front midway through the quarter, and Higgins with one of 4 goals in a row to give the Saints a 23-point three-quarter time lead. And we thought, how far the Saints at that stage. But the North came back, and I think it was interesting to see that guy's Clarko on the bench for the first time in a year coaching. He's been allowed to do it. Tom, what do you think of that?
Well, North Melbourne said to him a year ago, you have to coach up in the box, and he was back on the bench today. So they clearly did it to curb some of his behaviour, but he does prefer to coach on the bench.
And Tom, some incidents, we had the potential MRO incident with Tom Stewart on Ollie Wines.
Yeah.
A couple that will be looked at out of this game?
Yeah, Paul Curtis. This will, well, if it does get graded, which I think it will, it'll be intentional and then high contact, just whether it's low impact or medium impact. Now, it only has to be low impact there on Angus Hastie to equal a week. So that's an issue for him in North Melbourne. He's such a cult figure. But they frown upon intentional off-the-ball acts like that. And the other one is Cam Zurhaar, this high bump that just flicked Rowan Marshall. Remains to be seen if he got him enough again to get to medium impact, which would be a 1-week suspension. But, geez, this could have been anything. If he'd collected him here, he could be looking at 4 or 5.
He'd be very lucky just to have missed him. I think he'll get off, but he's very lucky because that jumping in the air, that's almost out of the game nowadays, isn't it?
Yeah, it's pretty rare you see that. Hey, Jimmy, what did you make of Jack Steele starting as the sub, the captain for St Kilda?
Yeah, it's different, but it's not the first time it's happened. I think there's been about 4 or 5 players who have had to go out there almost with the green vest on, and we've had the sub and flip the coin. But it's probably better off to have him in the side, even though he could have been potentially sore or needed to be managed through. than playing a player who wasn't ready or up to it.
Yep.
So the importance of having him around the group because of his captaincy and his leadership. And it's funny enough, with about a minute to go when he got on, he took a pretty vital marker on the boundary line. Not sure it was meant to be mapped out that way, but you'd rather him around the group than not.
This is Ross Lyon after the game on his captain Jack Steele as the sub.
I mean, in really simple terms, he was a sub for the simple reason, take some load off him and freshen him.
So in simple terms, he was the sub. Thanks, Ross. I'm glad he explained that to us.
Yeah. And Tom, of course, we talk about players playing under the pressure of contract. A man who has no stress about any contract discussion, Nasiah Wanganeen-Milera. Any updates? Everyone's wanting an update.
Yeah, well, the update is we don't know what he's going to do, but what I can tell you tonight is St Kilda last week made its final offer to Wanganeen-Milera, and he's aware, via St Kilda, that if he does sign, it will be the most lucrative, juicy deal in St Kilda history. So I'd be taking a calculated guess what sort of money that is. I'd imagine it's more than $3 million across 2 years.
It was a blank cheque, was it? Is that the
well,
last
blank cheque, you're probably 2.5. But yeah, it's amazing money. He's getting paid well wherever he goes. They're desperate for him to stay. He's playing some great footy. It's just a matter of whether he signs on the dotted line or not. But this is becoming the biggest story in footy, not just because he's out of contract, but because he's playing better and better footy the longer the season goes. Anyway, so much more to come on Footy Furnace. Stay with us. Up next, why we could be witnessing the death of the centre bounce. The Commission might have its say at the end of the year, plus the Dogs and the Giants. Stay with us. Welcome back to Footy Furnace. Let's go to Marvel Stadium on Thursday night where the Dogs defeated the Giants by 88 points from the very start. They looked like, well, not just a top 8 team, the Dogs, but a top 4 team, which is why it's remarkable they're still sitting outside the 8. There's some big games to come. The Giants' midfield got completely pantsed, and Adam Kingsley said it after the game as well, Jimmy. How much of a concern is this?
Yeah, it's a concern, and I think we've been highlighting this for the Giants for quite some time. They've clearly got some talent in front of the ball with that powerful forward line, and behind the footy, well, it met its match the other night, of course, Norton and Darcy taking over, Sam Taylor and Lickalier there as well, and no Jack Buckley hurts. But when you look at the midfield depth, the Dogs have certainly got that, and a lot of the sides in the top 8 have midfield depth. Cornelio's battled all year with that injury, that peculiar injury he's had. Kelly's out with a calf injury. Of course, Toby Green is midfield forwards out with a suspension. And then they rely so heavily on Green, Tom Green being an inside mid, and then it comes down to Finn Callahan creating all the drive. O'Halloran has been very serviceable and admirable, but then who else is the next one coming through? And this has been the issue with the Giants when they've lost players who obviously can seek bigger contracts, longer contracts elsewhere, that you're always in this draft and development mode. So they've got young midfielders, but they're not quite there, or they have to pop probably at 20, 30 games, not 50 games.
Is it putting Toby Green in for a little bit of time in the centre square with so much talent ahead of the ball? Yeah,
so Toby can come through into the centre bounce. Of course, missing Brent Daniels is another one who can come through the centre bounce and play that high half forward. Toby Bedford, but when he comes into the midfield, he's a tagger, run with. Normally, he's not necessarily a ball first guy. He's normally taking the opposition's best. So it's going to be a challenge for them. And then when Briggs gets beaten the way he did, Tim English was absolutely magnificent the other night. Let's tip our cap to that. But they need Briggs at his absolute best if they're any chance.
And against a Brisbane-type midfield again, who's got the sort of talent that the Bulldogs have got, they're going to struggle. So they need to get another line in their midfield.
Aaron Norton the other night was amazing. He's had an excellent 8 weeks alongside Sam Darcy. They're dangerous, the Dogs, but they've got to make it first. The Giants, well, they've won 6 in a row. Adam Kingsley will hope this was just an anomaly in the back half of the season. Let's move to Suns Richmond. Also on Saturday, up there at People's First Stadium, the margin in the end was 84 points. Tigers didn't kick a goal in the first half. It was a dismal performance from them. But one of the talking points out of the game was when Richmond ruckman bowled Toby Nankervis and their captain bowled over the umpire. What did you make of this incident, gents?
I was just unlucky with the bounce. I mean, everyone's talking about, moving the bounce, but the umpire was just in the wrong place at the wrong time. And unfortunately for the umpire, fortunately, he wasn't hurt.
And it was probably 2 left-handed ruckmen, which we don't see often. They're doing that dance where they're trying to get on the best side and come across the circle as well, because Big Witsy, we know, is a lefty. And Big Nank is a lefty, and on the positive note, we saw the guava jumpers again, Hurdy, which I know you like.
You want a long-sleeve guava jumper, don't you?
No, I want the long-sleeve guava. I want them to go the guava shorts as well.
I've got one.
You've got one?
No, I haven't.
No, I was going to say. Just bring it in if you've got one. Yeah. All right, you spoke about the bounce there, Hurdy, and the fact that it's under review, because Greg Swan's not a fan of it. He's put that on the record. Chris Fagan's not a fan of it. Luke Beveridge isn't a fan of it. In fact, the majority of players and coaches don't like the centre bounce. Now, in 2022, Andrew Dillon, then 2IC to Gil McLachlan, presented this to the Commission, a list of reasons why the bounce essentially should be outlawed from them. Part of it was it's a barrier to recruiting female umpires who don't necessarily have the strength of the male umpires, impacts decision-making because they're fatigued and they're worried about bouncing, and the physical and mental health of umpires as well. Some more points. It's unpopular with players and clubs. Surveys have shown that. And it is a hurdle for former players to umpire because they haven't been practising it for as long as umpires. So the Commission was presented this, and the only thing they could come back with was the bounce must stay because of the tradition of it. What are your thoughts on the bounce?
It's more than that. The bounce needs to stay because it actually defines the type of ruckman you have. If we just throw the ball up and guys can go and grab each other and they don't have to jump, it changes. It's just the tallest bloke or the strongest guy will win. If you want people who can adjust their jumping, who can use right technique and adjust, get under it, the bounce is a very important part of having different types of ruckman.
So you disagree with those points?
No, I don't know about those points. Those points are saying that for female umpire, I understand those points of mental health, but it's part of the game that makes sure we have a different type of ruckman than just one certain type of ruckman in the centre bounce. I think it's a very important part of the game.
Jimmy, what are your thoughts on the bounce?
Look, a lot of those points you can't disagree with because like we're not living in that space. The one I probably would challenge is if a bounce is impacting your decision-making, maybe your decision-making isn't that good. If you can't lean over and bounce a ball once every... And, well, there's 4 umpires now. You're probably doing one every 10 minutes. I'd probably put a line through that one if you're going to make it.
But I'm not disagreeing with mental health, but if I'm a person kicking a goal from 50 metres and I'm nervous about kicking a goal because I might miss, that could affect my mental health. So the bouncing of the ball, that's a skill for an umpire. It shouldn't have, it's a skill.
But why, this is a counter-argument, why should an umpire have a skill? They're there to make decisions, not necessarily execute
that's part of the skill. It's part of the skill of an umpire has been since day one. That's a skill of an umpire, like a boundary umpire, skills to throw it in.
Tom's arguing like they don't need a skill.
Well, why not? That's what we've had in the history of the game to do.
1897, yes.
No. It's not. But it's a legitimate skill as an umpire, to throw the ball up too. Yeah. What if they throw it wonky?
Well, you'd hope they wouldn't. It's not enshrined in the laws of the game, so the Commission will make the call at the end of the year.